I saw the Paul Graham chat room, and I thought it'd be great to start conversations on Eugene Wei's essays. He talks a lot about social media, has posts on TikTok and status, and all kinds of interesting posts. And he recently wrote about what he argues is kind of the fall of Twitter and its peak. If anyone's read it, I'm curious to hear thoughts. I'll add mine on later on.
Thanks for linking to this essay. It was actually really good. I guess I hadn't even noticed because I use lists entirely, so I wasn't using the core following algorithm that now seems to have been blown up. That said, I don't really understand his complaint. I have noticed my follower likes and counts and retweets and all of that stuff going down, but I presume that's because of bots and because of the way they're handling verified. But his main complaint seems to be is that for you is not the default and that who you follow is not a default. But you can still swipe over to who you follow. And yes, it may not be algorithmically curated. It might just be reverse cron sorted, but I don't think that's a terrible experience. And I think they can kind of fix the for you over time. Hopefully they're improving it relatively quickly, but I don't view the for you algorithm being changed as a death of Twitter. I do, however, agree that giving unfortunate credence to verified accounts across the board is a bad idea, because now you're basically taking people who pay $8 and saying their content is better, when in my experience there's no such correlation. In fact, it's probably negative. A lot of the up-and-coming smaller accounts aren't yet paying, shouldn't pay, and frankly should be paid. So yeah, some of these experiments are going to backfire, and social networks are indeed a finely crafted thing, so it can be quite painful watching Elon mess around with it. On the other hand, where are they going to go? Threads is even more curated by an algorithm than Twitter was. So, the people who are hooked on Twitter are hooked on Twitter. A sub-network simply will not do. It sort of reminds me of the people who leave the Bay Area every 10 years, saying it's overpriced and jump the shark and San Francisco is done. And then some of them sheepishly move back, and many of them just have to deal with the fact that there's no other substitute out there. And I think Twitter is going to be very much the same. Even though we may lose a couple of good tweeters, I think the damage that was done there was more by the fact that as Twitter got big and more about the news, it became an angrier place and a harder place to have conversations. And that was a more fundamental shift than Elon messing around with the following algorithm.
So I think that this is a great point that Naval brings up, and it was something that I was actually thinking about myself. It was actually related to my very first post on Threads. And I said that if Threads could do this, I'd probably use it over Twitter. I don't want to, because I think that Twitter, I still have my entire curation of accounts that I've built up over 10 plus years, whatever. I want that to work, but there are two things that I really, really want to see improve. One would be handling the responses from Twitter Blue verified members in the comment section. And then two, very simple, just offering the bookmark folders as a core product. For the first point with the Twitter Blue verified members, I think that comment sections are very underrated as far as a product offering for a social media service. On TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, you can expect different types of comments, by definition. On Twitter, you can expect something that's maybe a little bit more thoughtful, insightful, a good counter argument, something that, just kind of drives the conversation a little bit deeper in ways that maybe you didn't think about. On TikTok, usually they're pretty entertaining. Instagram, they're kind of middle of the road, sort of a general mass response. And yeah, depending on the account that you follow, you can pretty much guarantee a certain type of response if you follow that account long enough. But on Twitter, I think that it's really one of those places where you shouldn't have priority just because you're paying. I think that some of the more thoughtful people, like Naval mentioned here, don't necessarily pay, but they should still be rewarded by being at the top of the comment replies. I think that if they really want to, they can disperse the blue verified members, in the first half of maybe the scrolling or near the top. But I think that if there is a really quality response from a non-verified person, they shouldn't necessarily be punished just because they're not paying for the social media platform. I think that if you really want to go a little bit deeper into comment section histories, one of the more fascinating observations that I made starting from a pretty young age was, ESPN. Now, ESPN used to offer comments as, response to their articles, whatever their posts. And eventually they just got so opinionated that they just turned them off completely. And from that moment, I could completely feel a difference in the user experience in the platform. It didn't feel like a place where you could go to talk about sports, for example. It felt more political, and you could get the news still, but you couldn't really have a discussion there. And it felt like a community was sort of lost. I think that also, if you want to draw another parallel to the video game industry, I think that it's gone down a little bit slightly with the pay-to-play, quote-unquote, model that's been introduced, where maybe you get better weapons, guns, skins if you pay for them. And I totally understand that you can't necessarily make huge revenue expectation just off of the primary game sales. But I think that there should still be some sort of incentive to earn some of these some of these things that the game offers. And I think that comment sections are super valuable in this way. And yes, I don't think that Twitter Blue verified members should necessarily just have precedence just because they pay. Now, for the bookmark folders, I think that this is something that also is pretty much a core expectation from any other social media platform. I know on TikTok you can organize your bookmarks based off of topic, interest. Same thing on Instagram. I think that this should just be a thing on Twitter. I don't know why that this is exclusive to Twitter Blue. I think that out of almost any other social media platform, Twitter's probably the one where you would want to do this almost automatically, because there's no way that you can intake all of the information that you're consuming in one session. Say you're on there for 20-30 minutes, you're scrolling, reading. You can tell something's going to be important, but of course you're probably going to have to go back to study it a little bit more. And I think that this should just be a core offering, pretty simple. Maybe 5 to 10 max folders, maybe for non-verified or non-Twitter Blue users. And if they want to go above that, maybe hold the count 10 plus for verified Blue users. But I do think that these folders should just be included in the core product offering. I've experimented with a few other websites like Dewey that offer some type of bookmark folder functionality and feature. But again, paid product, might as well just use Twitter Blue. And the import of the bookmarks is just kind of a mess. So I just wish that this was different, and I completely agree with Naval here. Fixing the bookmarks and then addressing the comment section with the Blue members. I think this will happen, but I really want to see this happen personally.
Hey, Jack, welcome to Air Chat. Great comments, but you've got like 5 of them in one chit. Just for ease of use, sharing, consumption, and virality purposes, just recommend breaking them down into individual chits in the future. I don't always do it myself either, so I'm not saying I'm perfect here, but generally the idea is it's like a paragraph. You should have one idea per chit, and don't be afraid to leave multiple comments. Anyway, welcome to the app.
Right, but why did Twitter become more about the news? One could argue it's because the default feed is algorithmic and news gets more engagement than evergreen content. My point is that even if you are able to override the default Twitter experience by using lists or just using your follower feed, most users are not doing that. They're simply following what gets engagement on their default feed, which is news, which is, emotionally charged content. I wish everyone knew how to, use the right features, use bookmarks and lists and all that, but that's not the default behavior. Your response is great if it's about Eugene's use case specifically, but I don't think it applies to the average lurker or the small creator.
That's definitely part of it. Part of it is that people just want things that are new, not even sure why. For example, there's a lot of timeless content in this app, and people still prefer the new stuff, even if it's not as good. something in human nature. But yeah, it's a little baffling to me. I like reading old books. I would never pick anything out of the New York Times bestseller list or out of the airport bookshelf, but that's how most people get their books.
I think that's due to shiny object syndrome and people feeling a need to fit in with what's new or what's up and coming. I think that the idea that, oh, something new just came out, right? Creates the idea that, oh, now I need to get the new thing, or I need to be a part of the idea or belief so I'm not left out. And I think that's why a lot of technology, a lot of social media is dangerous in the sense that it creates a negative belief system, or not maybe negative, but maybe a false belief system in our mind that we need to fit in. We need to get the next best book, when a lot of really amazing books are ideas that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. Like when I used to read a good amount of philosophy or stoicism, and I picked up stuff like Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, I thought to myself, this is an amazing book. But if I think about it in comparison, it's been great all this time. And it's still something that should be, very well respected and very well read. It's not like, oh, Marcus Aurelius Meditations, New York Times bestseller. It's like, no, it's just a great book, and people understand that. And that's why they pick it up and, maybe read it and learn about it, in comparison to, I don't know, a new book that comes out. Oh, New York Times bestseller, New York Times, maybe X amount million copies sold. Like, there's no X million copies sold on books that have been around for thousands of years. I think that's more of a new concept that's created, and I'm unsure if that's more of a marketing thing, or for other people to be like, oh, wow, other people bought it, maybe I should buy it.
I'm definitely guilty of seeking novelty too. How much of this is a byproduct, or how much of this was accelerated from the newsfeed and the notification feature versus indoctrinated in how we consume content by just the concept of news? This is just me thinking out loud. At first thinking this is a recent phenomenon in the last 20 years, the age of social media. But then I just remember my reading about the history of news, and kind of the addiction people have about their daily newspaper. I think our time interval of what news means has definitely dramatically decreased. I guess the half-life of news has decreased every year with social media. So maybe that's been the shift, but we've always wanted news.
I think a lot of the timeless stuff actually forces you to do lots of introspection. And I think looking inward for people is hard and takes a lot of effort, at least initially. And I think people have just gotten comfortable with the noise and are constantly seeking new sources of noise.